Relax and enjoy today's episode of Things Fall Apart, as read by yours truly. Chapter 9. Ekwefi awakens Okonkwo before sunrise and tells him that Ezinma is dying. Okonkwo jumps up, runs to Ezinma's bedside and feels her forehead. Yes, she has a fever. He tells Ekwefi to get ready because they must go and collect medicine. Ekwefi was just afraid that her daughter might die. But hearing these words, she now becomes frightened. Fear tightens her throat. It is difficult to speak. She manages to ask where they are going and what medicine they will use. But Okonkwo does not answer. He knows what he must do. After all, he is a man. He leaves the house and goes straight to the herbalist. Ekwefi follows behind, carrying Ezinma on her back. You know, this Ekwefi woman, she is one special woman. Her 9 other children died in infancy, you know, and she really doted on Ezinma, who was her only surviving child, really. The love between a mother and daughter is the strongest in the world, and the relationship between Ekwefi and Ezinma is almost equal, a friendship between a mother and a daughter. You rarely hear Ezinma call her mother by her name. Usually it is Ekwefi calling her Ezinma. This is something quite unusual in their culture. And I think we can all agree that this is absolutely normal. It is, after all, a normal thing for a young girl to call her mother by her first name. Well, not in this time and place. Not in this time and place. After speaking with the herbalist, Okonkwo and Ekwefi return home. The herbalist has told them that an ogbanj, a wicked child who continually re-enters its mother's womb, only to die again and again, causing its parents great sorrow and expense, is tormenting them. The medicine man had previously mutilated the dead body of Ekwefi's 3rd child in order to discourage the ogbanj from returning. Like most ogbanj children, Ezinma suffered many illnesses, but she recovered from all of them until she turned 9 years old. Then everything became calm, 1 year before the start of the novel. A medicine man named Okagbuyuonwa discovered Ezinma's Iuwa, the small, buried pebble that is the ogbanj's physical link to the spirit world. Although the discovery of the Iuwa ought to have solved Ezinma's problems, every illness that Ezinma catches still brings terror and anxiety to Ekwefi. Chapter 10. The men of the village are gathered together in a large open space in front of the village's main shrine. Today is a ceremonial day when the clan holds a great gathering to administer justice and settle disputes. Every 9 years, the ancestral spirits of the clan, known as egwugwu, emerge from a secret house into which no woman is allowed to step. Everyone in the village respects the egwugwu, and they are all greatly afraid of them, the masked men who impersonate the spirits emerge from the sacred doorway, each supported by 2 strong men. There are 7 of them in all, and their presence strikes fear into the hearts of the people, especially the women and children. Everyone suspects that Okonkwo is among the egwugwu. But they cannot be sure. Women and children clear the path for the procession of the ancestral spirits, and the men stand aside until the spirits have passed. The women are filled with fear, although they sense that the egwugwu are merely men impersonating spirits. The first dispute that comes before the egwugwu involves an estranged husband and wife. The husband, Uzowulu, states that the 3 brothers of his wife, Mugbofo, beat him and took her and the children from his hut but would not return her bride price. The woman's brothers state that he is a beastly man who beat their sister mercilessly, even causing her to miscarry once. They argue that Uzowulu must beg Mugbofo to return to him. If she agrees, the brothers declare, Uzowulu must understand that they will cut his genitals off if he ever beats her again. The egwugwu decide in favor of Mugbofo. One village elder complains that such a trifling matter should not be brought before them. Chapter 11. Ekwefi is sitting in her courtyard with Ezinma by her side. Ezinma is doing some weaving while Ekwefi is making a necklace of cowrie shells. She tells Ezinma the story of a greedy, cunning tortoise who persuaded a set of birds to let him borrow feathers so that he could attend a great feast in the sky. While on the way to the feast, Tortoise also persuaded the birds to take new names. He told them that his name will be all of you. At the feast, Tortoise asked his hosts for whom the food was prepared. They replied, "For all of you." Tortoise then proceeded to eat and drink the best parts of the food and wine. The birds, angry and disgruntled at receiving only scraps, took back the feathers that they had given to Tortoise so that he is unable to fly home. Tortoise persuades Parrot to deliver a message to his wife. He wants her to cover their compound with their soft things so that he may jump from the sky without danger. Maliciously, Parrot tells Tortoise's wife to bring out all of the hard things. When Tortoise jumps, his shell breaks into pieces on impact with the ground. A medicine man puts it together again, which is why Tortoise's shell is not smooth. While the two are talking, Chielo, the priestess of Agbola, the oracle of the hills and caves, arrives. She informs Ekwefi that Agbola wishes to see Ezinma. Frightened, Ekwefi tries to stall Chielo, asking her to wait until morning, but Chielo refuses. Reminding Okonkwo that he must not defy a god, Chielo picks Ezinma up on her back and carries her away, telling Ekwefi not to follow. Despite her fear of divine punishment, Ekwefi follows anyway. Chielo, carrying Ezinma on her back, makes her rounds of the 9 villages. Finally, they arrive at the mouth of the oracle's cave, and here, Ekwefi resolves that if she hears Ezinma crying, she will rush in to defend her, even against a god. Meanwhile, Okonkwo arrives at the cave. He startles his wife, who thinks that he has come to take her to join Chielo and Ezinma inside. But he only wanted to relieve himself. After all, he is a man. He calms Ekwefi down and sits with her. She then recalls the first time she came to live with him. When she was still a young girl, she says, and he, a strong young man. She tells how she ran away from her first husband to be Okonkwo's wife, and when she knocked at his door, they exchanged no words. He led her to his bed and began to undo her clothing. Chapters 9 through 11. The relationship between Ekwefi and Ezinma is not a typical parent-child relationship. It is more like one between equals. Ekwefi receives a great deal of comfort and companionship from her daughter and, because she has lost so many children, she loves and respects her all the more. Although motherhood is regarded as the crowning achievement of a woman's life, Ekwefi prizes her so highly, not for the status motherhood brings her, but for the love and companionship that she offers. There are hints throughout the novel that Ekwefi and Ezinma share secrets together, such as their worries about the possibility of Ezinma being taken by the missionaries. This sense of comradeship between mother and daughter reaches its peak in Chapter 11, where the two characters defy the entire community in order to save each other. Another important thing to notice is the increasing focus on mutually supportive interaction between women when Okonkwo goes to get medicine for Ekwefi's fever. His other wives try to protect her from his anger. Earlier in the novel, when Okonkwo is choosing a new wife, Ekwefi is bitter about her own misfortune, but she does not blame the other women, nor does she envy them, in Chapter 10. While preparing for Ezinma's initiation, the women support and encourage one another, also. The friendship between Ekwefi and Chielo, the priestess of the goddess of the earth, is significant. Their relationship helps to humanize Chielo, who, despite her religious authority, is shown to be capable of forming deep attachments to people, in this case, her friend and her goddaughter. The incident with Chielo creates a real dilemma for Ekwefi, whose fear of the possible repercussions of disobeying her shows that Chielo's role as a priestess is taken seriously. It is not just ceremonial. Ekwefi and Okonkwo's love for their child is, however, strong enough that they are willing to defy religious authority. Here, the novel emphasizes the mother-daughter bond. Ekwefi chooses her daughter over the gods, even though Ekwefi is afraid of Chielo, she follows her to the cave. In doing so, Ekwefi contradicts Okonkwo's ideas of femininity and demonstrates that strength and bravery are not only masculine attributes. However, the fact that Ekwefi follows Chielo to the caves does not mean that she rejects her husband completely. She still respects him. She goes to get him so they can go together. And he, too, disobeys Chielo and goes with them. But he, too, is careful to show respect to Chielo. She is a woman, but as a priestess, she can order and chastise him openly. Her authority is not to be taken lightly. It's important to note, too, that despite her low social status, Chielo is very powerful and influential, interestingly. Although the novel takes place in pre-colonial Africa, the influence of colonial culture can already be seen here. One way this is shown is through the behavior of the characters toward the white missionaries. Another way it is shown is through the behavior of the characters toward Western ideas. Remember, Western missionaries have been in Nigeria since the late 1800s. They were unsuccessful in converting the Igbo people, and their efforts nearly caused a riot. However, their presence had an impact. The missionaries did succeed in converting a few people, and their ideas concerning gender roles challenged traditional Igbo culture. For instance, the idea that women should not be leaders or hold influential positions. The next thing we need to talk about is the irony present in the narrative. The narration of Chielo's kidnapping of Ezinma is straightforward. The villagers take it seriously and are afraid of the consequences of Chielo's actions. However, the narration of the egwugwu ceremony is rather ironic. The second egwugwu walks like Okonkwo, and the titled men and elders do not even invite him to join them. But no one seems to notice. No one calls attention to this obvious mistake. If they do think anything about it, they keep it to themselves. We can tell that the egwugwu are not real because the villagers know it. The narrator makes several comments to reveal to us that the villagers know that the second egwugwu has the springy walk of Okonkwo, and they might have noticed that Okonkwo was not among the titled men and elders who sat apart. But if they thought these things, they kept them within themselves. The story about the medicine man and the egwugwu seems likewise to contain a trace of irony. Earlier in the novel, there were hints that the egwugwu and the egwugwu were fake. And now this story supports those hints, although the narrator discusses the egwugwu and egwugwu in a tone that approaches mockery. On a few occasions the narrator remarkably says nothing that seems to undermine the villagers' perception of the strength of Chielo's divine power. The final thing we need to discuss today is the significance of the folktales. These tales are not mere entertainment. They often serve as parables filled with symbolism. This chapter includes one such folktale, the story that Ekwefi tells Ezinma about tortoise and the birds. In this tale, Tortoise convinces the birds to allow him to come with them even though he does not belong. He then appropriates all of their food. The story presents two different ways of defeating Tortoise. First, the birds strip Tortoise of the feathers that they had lent him. This strategy involves cooperation and unity among the birds. When they refuse to concede to Tortoise's desires, Tortoise becomes unable to overpower them. Parrot's trick suggests a second course of action by taking advantage of the position as translator. Parrot outwits Tortoise to defeat Tortoise. The birds must work together. This reinforces the concept of unity, a major theme of the novel. Moreover, the story foreshadows the coming of the white missionaries. Tortoise does not belong with the birds, yet he tries to join them. just as Tortoise tries to make himself indispensable to the birds. So to do, the missionaries believe they are bringing enlightenment to the Igbo people. Like Tortoise, they encroach on Igbo lands and attempt to control and change everything. In our next set, please subscribe to our channel. At dawn, Chielo exits the shrine with Ezinma on her back. Without saying a word, she takes Ezinma to Ekwefi's hut and puts her to bed. Then she disappears into the bush. Ekwefi is relieved but wonders where Chielo might have gone. She decides to find out. Meanwhile, at the Okonkwo compound, the men are preparing for Obirika's daughter's Yuri, a betrothal ceremony. After the previous evening's drama, Okonkwo is extremely worried about his daughter. But he does not show it. He forces himself to wait a while before walking to the oracle's shrine. He finds it empty, so he knows that Chielo must be making her rounds to the 9 villages. So he returns home to wait. In all, he makes 4 trips to and from the caves. By the time he departs for the cave for the last time, Okonkwo is gravely worried. He encounters Chielo just after sunset, and she tells him that his daughter will be fine. Relief washes over Okonkwo. They return home together, and he rejoins the men who are still waiting for him. The men from Obirika's quarter are helping his family prepare for the celebration. They slaughter the cow that Obirika bought for the bride price. Soon the entire village is contributing food and drink to the festivities. Okonkwo is so preoccupied with thoughts of his daughter that he almost forgets about the celebration. The suitor's family members arrive and settle the clan's doubts about their generosity by bringing an impressive 50 pots of wine. The women greet the visitors and the men exchange ceremonial greetings. Then they all sit down to a great feast. The men drink palm wine and the women serve them more food. Soon, the sound of drums and singing fills the air. Everyone is happy except Okonkwo. He drinks a lot of palm wine and fights off sleep so that he can keep watch over the celebrations. In the middle of the night, the women scream and run toward the center of the village. A cow is loose and they cannot find its owner. The drunkards join the women and they find the animal near the edge of the village. The owner comes running and the men beat him for letting his cows loose on his neighbors' farms. To make amends, the owner pays a fine for each animal and everyone disperses. The next morning, Ogbuefi Ezeudu is announced dead, and the messenger plays the ekwe, a musical instrument used to announce important events. Okonkwo shudders. The last time Ezeudu visited him was to warn him against taking part in Ekimefuna's death. Now, after all these months, the old man had paid the price of his disobedience. As a great warrior, Ezeudu took 3 of the clans for titles. So his funeral is large and elaborate. The men pound drums and fire their guns. Okonkwo raises his gun to shoot, but it goes off accidentally. He pulls the trigger again, but it doesn't go off. Ominously, the one-handed spirit calls out, "If your death was the death of nature, go in peace. But if a man caused it, do not allow him a moment's rest." Moments later, the sound of the gun startles the crowd. Everyone stares at Okonkwo, who drops his gun. Ezeudu's son lies dead on the ground. All the men cry out, "The earth goddess has been insulted. Killing a clansman is a crime against the earth goddess, so Okonkwo must atone by taking his family into exile for 7 years. Okonkwo gathers his most valuable belongings and leaves Umuofia with his family and a few other men. They walk several days to reach his mother's natal village, Manta, here. According to the mandates of tradition, the men from Ezeudu's quarter burn Okonkwo's buildings and kill his animals to cleanse the village of his sin. Obirika questions why a man should suffer so much for an accidental killing. He then mourns the deaths of his wife's twins, whom he was forced to throw away. If the earth goddess demanded a sacrifice, why not him? Why not his own children? He wonders what crime they committed. What do you think about the punishment that Okonkwo received? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe.